firstly, why can't we show who you are?
It's just because of the nature of the operations that I was involved with during the 10 years I was in the Special Air Service.
OK, because you were with the SES. Now, you left them about, well, it was 1993.
93, yeah.
93. Why have you focused on what's happening with servicemen and women now?
Well, I was in a Special Air Service troop, between 8 and 12 guys during that 10 years, and during that time I saw people starting to suffer. In fact, 2 of my friends committed suicide were in that troop, and one killed his girlfriend, and they were suffering once they got out, post-traumatic stress, and it was really, as I wrote a book about these experiences, it was really looking at the problem and wondering, well, what do people think about this, and is it sort of just Special Forces or the Army as a whole?
So you commissioned this poll from ICM, which is a standard poll. 3,000
yes.
people were asked, and you paid a significant
yes.
amount of money for it. And you found overall that, by and large, people in Britain feel pretty badly about the way the armed forces are treated.
They do. I think that in general, the percentage of people sort of being pro-army or pro the military was quite encouraging. I think really the MOD are doing very well now with serving soldiers. The trauma care that people are receiving in Iraq and Afghanistan, and certainly the psychological care. Even in units now, junior NCOs, corporals, lance corporals and sergeants are trained to look at their soldiers for symptoms of post-traumatic stress. The problem is when these people get out of the military, and since the 1990s it's been deemed that they'll go through the NHS system, and it's clearly not working.
Okay. Although the MOD, just to quote what they're saying this morning, they do say that they try to fast-track veterans through the NHS, and they say that the vast majority of service leavers make a very smooth transition to civilian life. 94% use their skills and experience to find full employment within 6 months.
No, that's absolutely true, and in the vast majority of people do lead productive life. Post-traumatic stress is a minority of people, and depending on what group you talk to, it's averaging about 15% of that military population will suffer the symptoms to some degree or another. And the fact that the NHS, they do get held up, and the fact is you talk to guys out there who are suffering, they say, look, we go through the system, but they don't get it.
What do you think specifically, then, should be done?
Well, I think that, certainly the way that the Ministry of Defence now have got grips of the situation with serving soldiers, we've now got sort of dedicated units within the NHS system. It'd be nice to see if we can get that sort of system going for ex-service personnel. And it's just not people who've served in Iraq or Afghanistan. Some of these people have experienced certainly the ethnic cleansing in places like Bosnia and Kosovo. And it takes between 10 or 13 years for these symptoms to be fully blown up and suffer. So these guys are normally out, and they feel that there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's interesting that most of the things you've talked about are sort of a readjustment from army life, service life, back to civilian life. Is this something that you found yourself when you left the SAS in 1993? Obviously, you've become a very successful author since, but did you find it difficult to readjust? Very much so,
very much so. I think that certainly, I served 18 years in the army, and I was a boy soldier, so I went in at 16, and I was already in an institution. I was in juvenile detention before that, so it's institutionalised, if you like, and getting out, life is different. Even the vocab, the way you speak, and the cue, everything's different, so it's very difficult to sort of get into the mainstream of things. But soldiers are very successful, as the MOD statement says, but there is the minority, and a significant minority, because the numbers of troops now that are going through Iraq and Afghanistan that will suffer, and it could be anything up to about 22,000 people who will suffer through post-traumatic stress.
A lot of people also worried about the pensions and war pensions. Several people writing making this sort of point. Somebody saying, I've got a war pension and an army pension, which comes to £500 a month, but it's for injuries that they suffered in service. Since then, they found out it's classed as income, so they don't get unemployment benefit, even though they've worked all their life, and several other people.
This is a constant problem where figures are given how much soldiers will get, but actually, in fact, it's serving and veterans, and the money isn't exactly as it is. I think that as a nation, the survey proved that we are behind it. We understand what our troops go through. And so it's trying to get money from government to try and give some special sort of compensation for veterans to get the care they need. So, we feel that our government are doing the right thing, because at the moment we've got 1 in 11 of the prison population are ex-military. So, I have no idea how much it costs to put a prisoner you know, in prison for a year. It may be cheaper just to give them that extra care so they don't land up there.